Good morning and good afternoon. I am Aaron James Estacio from BSc 1-9. I'm here to discuss the social learning theory and cognitive theory. Okay, let's start. Who promote the social learning theory and cognitive theory? So, Albert Bandura is the one who promoted and developed those theories because he asserted that most human behavior is learned through observation, imitation, and modeling. He is also a professor at Stanford University since 1953, and also he is an author of over 300 scholarly publications. Next, social learning theory. Theory emphasizes learning through observation of others. For example, of this theory, when you were young, you never knew things how to act or speak. But as you grow up, you observe your parents and imitate them, and in that way, you learn. You learn something by observing your parents as a model and imitate it. The environment of a person really affect on how he or she will become in the future. Also, we learn not only how to perform a behavior, but also what will happen to us in a specific situation if we do perform it. Next is type of social learning theory. First one, inhibition is something that holds you back or restrain you from doing something. Example is when you are concerned about your body and don't want to wear shorts or swimsuit or go to beach. Your concern is an example of your inhibition. Next, disinhibition. To learn to exhibit a behavior that is usually disapproved of by most people because some model does the same without being punished. Example of this is addiction, like gambling addiction, sex addiction, and shopping addiction. Next, facilitation. One should try to learn something new, but one should be tested on well-learned material in presence of others. Example is a musician, an actor, who perform energized by having an audience, and those a better performance. Those person is mas gagaling sila pag meron silang mga viewers and then pag may mga nanonood sa kanila. Next is observational learning. Observational learning is targeted behavior is watch it, memorize, and then mimic. Example is this is dancing. And most common is children as they imitate behaviors of adults. Next is the elements of social learning theory. First, the social learning theory has a four medicinal process that help determine whether a new behavior is acquired. First, attention, a degree to which we notice the behavior. A behavior must grab our attention first before it can be imitated, considering the number of behaviors we observe. And do not imitate daily indicates attention is crucial in whether a behavior influences imitation. Next is retention. How will we remember the behavior? We cannot perform the behavior if we do not remember the behavior. So, while a behavior may be noticed, unless a memory is formed, the observer will not perform the behavior. And because social learning is not immediate, retention is a vital behavior of modeling. Next is reproduction, the ability to perform the behavior. This ability is to reproduce a behavior that we observe. It influences our decision about whether to try performing the behavior, even we wish to imitate an observed behavior. We are limited by our physical abilities because some of the behavior ay hindi natin kayang gawin because we're lack of physical abilities. Meron silang ganan pero hindi natin kaya kasi gawa ng ating katawan. So, next, motivation. The will to emulate the behavior. This mediational process is referred to as vicarious reinforcement. It involves learning through observing the consequence of action for other people, rather than through direct experience. And also, in addition to the behavior, reward and punishment that follow will be studied by the observer. If the observer perceives the rewards to be greater than the cost of punishment itself, then they will most likely imitate the behavior. If, however, the vicarious reinforcement is not valued enough by the observer, they will not model the behavior because, syempre, nagdidepende pa rin ng tao kung ano yung makukuha niya, kung gagayahin niya yung behavior na yan. Next. Next is social cognitive theory. First one is this experiment, the Bobodal experiment. A groundbreaking study on aggression led by psychologist Albert Bandura that demonstrate that children are able to learn through the observation of adult behavior. This experiment is when adults were recorded being aggressive to Bobodals. A Bobodals is a example of mannequin. And children were shown the video, then allowed to play in a room full of toys. And children were aggressive to Bobodals. Just adults were in the video. So that's explained the experiment. Next. Social cognitive theory is also with the context of social interaction, experience, and outside of the media influences. Next is the reciprocal caution model environment learning behavior person by Albert Bandura. State that a person behavior both influenced and influenced by a personal factor in the social environment. First is the environment, the physical surrounding, like family, friends, and other social influences, or in short, the models. Next is the person, the cognitive abilities, physical characteristic, and beliefs, attitude, or goal sense of efficiency attribution, and behavior, the process of self-regulation, goal progress, and motivation learning. Bandura's social cognitive theory emphasized reciprocal influences of those three: the environment, behavior, and the person. Also, Bandura say that those three ay umiikot sa bawat isa para ma-achieve yung learning ng isang tao. Next is the type of learning, the inactive learning and vicarious learning. So, inactive learning is learning by doing and experiencing the consequences of their actions which provided information, while vicarious learning is learning by observing others or your surroundings. So they are different from each other. Next is the learning process. So social cognitive theory also have a four process like social learning theory, the attention, retention, reproduction, motivation. So first one is attention. The interest of a person, the more the interest of a person, the more the learner dedicate his attention. Remember that. Retention. This can be affected by number of factors, but the ability to pull up information later and act on its vital observation. Next is reproduction. This can, no, sorry. A further you practice a learned behavior, it leads to improvement and skill advancement. Next is motivation. Like I'd say in social learning theory, here, reinforcement and punishment play an important role in motivation. Next is the models in social cognitive theory. So models can be real people. Models can also from social media, books, and like teachers, coaches, and your family, your parents. And models can influence behavior positively or negatively. So it depends on how a model perform it, the behavior. If it's a positive, it's going to negative. It depends on the model and on how a person see the behavior. Next is the characteristic of models. Characteristic of models have a both real and symbolic, also prestige and power. Models are competent, perform tasks well that others would like to be able to do. So, syempre, pag tama naman yung ginagawa ng isang tao at maganda, so parang gugustuhin ng isang tao na gayahin yon o i-imitate yon. And dapat sa isang modelo ay positive lagi ang ginagawa niya para magaya siya ng ibang tao. So, that's all sa end of the presentation. Thank you for listening. I'm Aaron James Estacio from BSC 1-9. Thank you.